Good morning. So today I have some stuff to get done. I just finished a new piece, which I'm really excited about. I'll show you that in a second. But I've been going through my studio, just like finding canvas to use because I'm quickly running out of canvas, but I also want to reuse as many canvas as I can, so I'm not like spending money that I don't need to spend when I have like canvas that I can reuse that I'm literally, because like half the paintings that are in the corner of my studio I hate and they're really old, but I did find some cool ones that I'm thinking about like doing like a flash sale on my socials. I found this one. I actually really like this one. It's really textured and I like the colors. It's like a wave. I was really obsessed with doing waves. We have like 3 of these paintings like around our house. And then I just found like a bunch of like old paintings that are like basic. They're not bad though. Like they're kind of impressive for my skill set like 3 years ago. So I think I'm gonna do like a flash sale, do like highest bid or something, or just price them super cheap. Like I'm not gonna price them with the prices I use now because I don't think they're worth that. Plus like they've literally been sitting in the corner of my studio. I don't have much attachment to them, and like I just need a little extra cash so I can maybe buy more canvas with more supplies. But yeah, I also was going through, I have like the closet right there. There's a bunch of really old paintings in there, and some of them I'm keeping just because they like some of those are the first paintings I ever made, like the step I took towards falling in love with art again. So I'm keeping those just because they have a little more meaning to me. But I found a bunch that don't really care about, that like have just been sitting there and I've never really been able to reuse them because they're really texturized because I used palette knives a lot. But now that I'm doing an abstract series which are very textured, I don't really care because it kind of is cool. Like this one, so this painting used to be a like it was texturized on the bottom. I covered it in gesso, but it had like a palette knife painting below it, so you can kind of see the texture of the paint below, which is actually really cool looking. You can kind of see it at certain angles, not really, I'm guessing not on the camera, but that's really cool. So yeah, this is Dreamland. I just finished her. I actually really like it. I used a fan brush a lot, which I have never really used before in my abstract pieces, which was really fun to play around with. But yeah, I really like this one. I'm actually going to start on another one now, but I actually so these are a bunch of like smaller canvas I found in my closet, so I'm actually first going to gesso these and let them dry while I'm working on my next painting so that I can use these over the course of the next couple days for my next paintings. So far we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paintings into this series, which is kind of wild because I started this like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it's going super well and I'm really in love with it. Yeah, my gesso brush. This brush is literally just my designated priming brush. And then I have Liquitex Professional Gesso. I've literally been using this one for a year now. It's actually lasted quite a bit of time. I think I'm just smart with the amount I use. So these paintings are probably 4 or 5 years old. I remember, so before I was lucky enough to get this room as a studio, I just painted in the corner of my bedroom or in the basement. And I remember spending hours just staring at this piece because I had a really cool idea of it. I can still remember the idea. I just could not for the life of me figure out how to do it. And I was using very no, they were good paints, but they were small tubes. They were like a starter set, essentially. And they were actually really good paints. I still have them because I didn't end up using all of the bottles. So when I have friends over that, like, I don't want to risk them, like, ruining my, like, heavy body expensive paints, I just give them those because they don't really care. So, like, they still get put to use. I have a lot of those, like, training basic sets of paints that I don't necessarily use unless, like, I don't care what brand of paint I'm using. Like for my abstract pieces, I tend to use cheaper paint because I use more of it and I don't want to waste a lot of like my heavy body paints. Not that it's waste, it's just it does consume a lot more paint than a like realistic piece would. So I tend to use like the basics Liquitex paints just because those are more forgiving when you use them, like they spread better. They just work better for what I'm doing in my abstract pieces, but I definitely think like once I go through those, I'm gonna have to start going through the drawers of heavy bodies I have, because I have quite a bit, and like they're just sitting there, and I need to challenge myself to use colors I have instead of buying more, which this year, like at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm not going to buy art supplies every month like I used to, and I definitely stopped doing that like previous to this year, but I really just want to spend the least amount of art supplies I can this year. And it's been going super, super well. That's why I'm using so many different canvas and like making sure I'm utilizing all the paint I have in my drawer, just because like I have so much supplies and I don't want it to go to waste. So I'm like making sure I use all of those. Oh, I had this series idea I was thinking of doing for YouTube. Sorry, my brain is everywhere apparently. But I wanted to do something where I challenge myself to use different mediums that I don't like, because I have essentially every medium except for like wash and oil paint. Actually, I do have oil paints, but I can't really use them because I don't have all the right supplies, and my family doesn't want me to use them in the house, which maybe I could do it outside during the summer. That's actually not a bad idea because it's starting to warm up. But I wanted to do a series where I painted with the mediums that I don't like using. So like I don't like, it's not necessarily that I don't like them, it's just that I don't have practice with them and don't really understand them as I do with like painting with acrylics, because this is what I've been doing for the past 5-6 years, which is so wild to think about. So I was thinking I could do a series where I just paint using mediums that I'm not necessarily comfortable with, like watercolor, which I always am impatient with. We could do oil pastels, which I don't use much. I used to. Chalk pastels, which I used to use a lot. I actually do quite like chalk pastels. And I'm definitely missing more. Markers. Markers, definitely. I don't use markers in art that much just because I don't know. I don't work well with them for the type of stuff I do, I guess. I have quite a bit though. So I guess that might be a good excuse to like challenge myself to use the supplies that I don't use and maybe actually figure out like a way to utilize them in a way, like, I don't know. I think those are cool ideas. So maybe that will come soon. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so this is the last prime. They're so much quicker to prime when you already have paint on them, just because it's like the canvas isn't sucking them up, so it definitely takes less gesso, which is nice. Probably actually could have used less on that one, but that's okay. So now we have all 4 of them primed, and we're gonna let those dry while we work on the next one, but I gotta rinse this first. Okay, we got a new canvas up. I've been thinking on this idea for a while, actually not that long, but like fairly long. So I'm just gonna start out with some blues and purples. It's kind of gonna be a similar color palette to Wander Over Wander, which I will insert right now so y'all can see which one that is in case you haven't seen it yet. But it's gonna be kind of similar palette to that, but I have a different story behind it, if that makes sense. So I'm just taking colors that I want and putting them on the sponge. Sometimes I spray the sponge if I want it to be a little more wet. Normally for the first go I just use dry sponge so I can get the boldest colors. So I'm just picking out what paints I want to use. Love that one. This green is supposed to be, it's phthalo green, but like for some reason it's super turquoisey, which I actually really like because it works out pretty well. So yeah, I just gob on whatever paints I really want to use for the first go. I normally impose more colors as I go on, but for now I just have a bunch of different variations of blue, and some like turquoisey greens. I don't know if that's turquoise, I forget the name. Well, I guess it's phthalo. So I just kind of go at it. There's a hair, of course. Yeah, so this is an old painting that I just primed over, so I'm just gonna go. So I didn't end up talking during this part while doing it, just because, believe it or not, it actually does take quite a bit of focus, so I was just kind of dropping into the moment and figuring out whatever came out of my movement and my intentions. That's why I wasn't talking, because if I talked it would honestly hinder the process, so I'm talking over it. But I hope this gives you a little insight into how I work and what my abstract process is like. Obviously you can't hear what's going on in my head, but it is, I think, super interesting to watch and see as it forms together.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed. I really am excited to show you guys the processes behind these pieces. There's still a lot to go in this piece, I think, but I wanted to leave a little element of surprise, so I'm not sharing that with you today in this video, maybe another video. If you guys like this video, please let me know. I would love to do this again. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Your support really helps. And I will see you guys in the next video. And also, if you want to catch more of my content, I stream every other day on twitch.tv/astrolovical. I host a podcast, and all of my other socials will be in the description below. Thank you guys so much again. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!